r/AITA. My son called me cheap, so I sold all his stuff. The Xbox controller hit the wall with a satisfying crack, plastic pieces scattering across Tyler's bedroom floor like expensive confetti. I stood in the doorway, my work uniform still damp with grease from my second job at Romano's Pizza, watching my 16-year-old son scramble to collect the fragments. Mom, what the hell? Language, I snapped, though my voice was surprisingly calm. And don't bother picking those up. You won't be needing them anymore. The look Tyler shot me could have melted steel. Are you insane? That controller cost $80. $80. Right. I'd worked 4 hours at the diner yesterday just to afford those stupid batteries he'd been whining about. 4 hours of refilling coffee cups and scraping plates while my feet screamed in these second-hand shoes that were a size too small. Funny you should mention the cost, I said, pulling out my phone and opening the Craigslist app I downloaded 20 minutes ago. Because I'm about to find out exactly how much all of this is worth. That's when the color drained from his face. It had started 3 days ago when I'd come home early from my shift at Morrison's Diner. I'd been scheduled until 9, but Jenny had offered to cover for me since I'd been pulling doubles all week. I planned to surprise Tyler with Chinese takeout, the good stuff from Golden Dragon, not the cheap frozen dumplings we usually made do with. Instead, I'd gotten the surprise of my lifetime. I'd crept up the stairs, plastic bags rustling softly, when I heard his voice through the crack in his door. He was on video chat with someone, his girlfriend Madison, judging by the high-pitched giggling. Seriously, it's so embarrassing, Tyler was saying. Like, yesterday she picked me up from school in that piece of crap Honda, and everyone saw. Jake's mom drives a Tesla, and here's mine looking like she grabbed the car from a junkyard. My hand had frozen on the doorknob. And don't even get me started on the clothes, he'd continued. She keeps trying to get me to shop at Goodwill. Goodwill? Can you imagine? She's all like, Tyler, this flannel is practically new, and I'm like, yeah, because someone else already wore it, Mom. It's gross. Madison's voice had drifted through the speaker. Oh my god, that's awful. Why doesn't she just get a better job? Right? She works at this greasy diner and some pizza place, acting like she's so tired all the time. My dad says she's just bad with money. Like, maybe if she stopped being so cheap and actually tried, we wouldn't be living like this. The Chinese food containers had slipped from my numb fingers, hitting the hallway floor with a wet splat. Sweet and sour sauce had seeped into the carpet, the same carpet I'd shampooed by hand last month because we couldn't afford Stanley Steamer. Tyler had kept talking, oblivious. The worst part is when she acts all proud about her bargain hunting. Like, congratulations Mom, you saved $3 on expired yogurt. Meanwhile, I can't even invite friends over because our house looks like a garage sale exploded. Now, standing in his room with my Craigslist app open, I watched Tyler's Adam's apple bob as he swallowed hard. Mom, he said carefully, what are you doing? I smiled, the same smile I'd been practicing in the diner's bathroom mirror for the past 3 days. Teaching you about cheap, sweetheart. I started with the gaming setup, because why not go for the jugular first? Xbox Series X, I announced, typing into my phone like a sports commentator. Let's see, currently retailing for $499, but I'll start the bidding at $350. Oh, and this fancy headset, SteelSeries Arctis 7, looks like it's going for $150 on Facebook Marketplace. Mom, stop. Tyler's voice cracked on the second word. You can't just sell my stuff. Half of it was birthday presents from Dad. That made me pause. Richard. My ex-husband who'd moved to Phoenix with his 28-year-old dental hygienist and their new baby. The same Richard who sent Tyler $200 every few months and called it child support, while I picked up overtime shifts to pay for school clothes and car insurance. You mean the dad who thinks I'm bad with money? I kept typing, adding the PlayStation 5 to my mental inventory. The one you've apparently been having such lovely conversations with about my financial management skills? Tyler's mouth opened and closed like a fish. How did you? Thin walls, sweetheart. And you're louder than you think. I moved to his dresser, running my fingers along the row of Air Jordans lined up like trophies. These are nice. Retro 4s, if I'm not mistaken. What did these run, $190? $200? Those were from Christmas. Christmas 3 years ago. You know what I got myself for Christmas that year? I picked up the shoes, examining them. Barely a scuff mark. A $30 gift card to Target that I spent on toilet paper and laundry detergent. But hey, priorities, right? My phone buzzed. Already, 3 people had messaged about the Xbox listing. My chest tightened, there was no going back now. Tyler sat heavily on his bed, his head in his hands. For a second, he looked like a little boy who used to help me count coupons at the grocery store, making a game of seeing how much money we could save. When did that change? When did my sacrifices become embarrassments? Mom, please, he said quietly. I'm sorry about what I said, okay? I was frustrated. Frustrated about what, exactly? I sat down beside him, close enough to smell the expensive cologne Richard had sent for his birthday. Another guilt gift. That I work 60 hours a week to keep a roof over our heads? That I drive a 13-year-old car because a payment on something newer would mean choosing between groceries and your phone bill? That's not, he stopped, his face flushing red. Everyone else's parents just had their shit together. Their shit together. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Tyler, Jake's mom? The one with the Tesla? She's married to a neurosurgeon and doesn't work. Madison's family owns 3 rental properties. You're comparing my life to people who started with advantages I can't even dream of. My phone buzzed again. Someone was offering $300 cash for the Xbox if I could meet tonight. I know you're embarrassed, I continued. I get it. Being a teenager is hard enough without feeling different from your friends. But calling me pathetic? Mocking the fact that I work 2 jobs to give you the best life I can manage? That crosses a line. Tyler was crying now, actual tears, not the manipulative waterworks he'd perfected for getting out of chores. I didn't mean for you to hear that, he whispered. That's the problem, Tyler. You meant every word. You just didn't mean for me to hear it. I stood up and walked to his closet, pushing aside the everyday clothes to reveal the designer pieces hanging in the back like hidden treasures. Supreme hoodie, $180. Off-white t-shirt, $290. A Balenciaga jacket that had somehow materialized after his last weekend at his father's. Jesus Christ, I breathed, pulling out the jacket. The price tag was still attached, $1,200. Tyler, where did this come from? He wouldn't meet my eyes. Dad bought it for me. For my birthday. Your birthday was in March. It's October. I felt the fabric between my fingers, softer than anything I'd ever owned. This is worth more than my car. So what? It's mine. Is it? I was already photographing the jacket, my hands shaking slightly as I typed up the listing. Because the kid who owns a $1,200 jacket probably shouldn't be complaining about his mother being cheap. Unless. A horrible thought crept into my mind. I pulled out my phone and called Richard before I could stop myself. He picked up on the third ring, country music playing in the background. Linda? Everything okay? Did you buy Tyler a Balenciaga jacket? Silence. Then, what now? Balenciaga. Designer. $1,200. My voice was getting higher. Tyler said it was from you. Linda, you know I can barely afford the support payments I'm already sending. I haven't bought him anything since his birthday, and that was just a couple video games. The room tilted sideways. I looked at Tyler, who had gone completely white. Where did you get the jacket, Tyler? I can explain. Where? I sold some of my old stuff. The words tumbled out in a rush. Games and cards and things I didn't use anymore. I wanted something nice for once, something that didn't come from a clearance rack. But I was already putting pieces together. Last month, my jewelry box had seemed different. My grandmother's ring, nothing fancy, maybe worth $200, had been missing from its usual spot. I'd convinced myself I'd misplaced it, torn the house apart looking. Tyler. My voice was deadly quiet. Did you take my grandmother's ring? His silence was answer enough. And what else? I was moving now, checking drawers, looking for other missing items. The silver bracelet your aunt gave me? The earrings from my college graduation? Mom, I was going to replace them. I just needed. You needed what? Another status symbol so you could fit in with kids whose parents make 10 times what I do? I was shouting now, months of exhaustion and frustration pouring out. You stole from me so you could buy designer clothes and then called me cheap for working myself to death? Tyler was sobbing openly. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to feel normal. Normal? I laughed bitterly. Tyler, we are normal. We're the normal that most people live with every day, working hard, making sacrifices, getting by. Those other families you're so desperate to impress? They're the exception, not the rule. My phone was buzzing constantly now. The Xbox had 6 offers, someone wanted to buy the shoe sight unseen, and a collector was interested in the designer clothes for his resale shop. You know what? I said, screenshotting the offers. I think I'm going to take these deals. Every single one. Please don't do this, Tyler whispered. You should have thought about that before you decided I wasn't good enough for you. I started typing acceptance messages, my finger hovering over send as Tyler watched in horror. One by one, I hit the button. The first buyer arrived at 7:30 p.m. sharp. Marcus Washington was a college kid, maybe 20, with kind eyes and calloused hands that reminded me of my own. He counted out $300 in 20s while Tyler watched from the top of the stairs like a ghost. This is a really good deal, Marcus said, carefully loading the Xbox into his Honda Civic. My little brother's gonna lose his mind. We've been saving up for months. How old is your brother? I asked, genuinely curious. 14. Our mom works at the post office, and money's been tight since Dad got laid off from the plant. He grinned. But hey, Christmas is gonna be awesome this year. I felt Tyler's eyes boring into my back as I handed Marcus the controllers and games. Here was a kid who understood the value of money, who appreciated a good deal instead of scorning it. The irony wasn't lost on me. After Marcus drove away, I found Tyler sitting on the living room couch, staring at his hands. That kid seemed grateful, I said, settling into my threadbare armchair, the one I bought secondhand 5 years ago that Tyler always complained about. Yeah. His voice was barely audible. You know what's funny? His family's probably in the same boat as us. Maybe worse. But he was excited to give his brother something special, not embarrassed about how they could afford it. Tyler flinched. I get it, okay? I'm a horrible person. You're not horrible. You're spoiled. I pulled out my phone as another message came through. And apparently, you're about to be a lot less spoiled. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Jennifer Chen, a woman about my age with designer everything and a BMW idling in my driveway. She was here for the clothes. Oh my god, she breathed, examining the Balenciaga jacket. My son will absolutely die. He's been begging for one of these for months. She handed me an envelope stuffed with cash. $1,500 for everything? The jacket, the Supreme hoodie, those off-white pieces? I blinked. I listed them for $800 total. Trust me, you're undervaluing them. My husband works in fashion retail, I know what this stuff goes for. She winked. Besides, I'd rather pay a fair price than feel like I'm taking advantage. $1,500. That was more than I made in 3 weeks at the diner. As Jennifer loaded Tyler's designer wardrobe into her trunk, I stared at the envelope in my hands, feeling dizzy. Everything okay? Jennifer asked. Yeah, this is a lot of money. She glanced at our house, really looked at it, taking in the peeling paint and crooked shutters. Honey, can I ask why you're selling all this? It's clearly been well taken care of. I hesitated. Teaching my son a lesson about gratitude. Jennifer nodded slowly. Good for you. Too many kids these days think they're entitled to everything. She paused. For what it's worth, you seem like a good mom. This couldn't have been easy. After she left, I found Tyler exactly where I'd left him, but now he was crying again. $1,500, I said, sitting beside him. Do you know what I can do with $1,500? He shook his head. I can fix the transmission in my car. The one that's been slipping for 6 months, the one that makes you so embarrassed. I set the envelope on the coffee table between us. Or I could catch up on the electric bill, maybe even get ahead for once. I didn't know, Tyler whispered. Didn't know what? That we were that behind. On bills and stuff. He wiped his nose with his sleeve. I thought you were just. I don't know. Being dramatic about money. My phone rang. The number was local but unfamiliar. Hello? Hi, this is Amy from Jefferson High. I saw your listing for the Air Jordans. I'm a teacher there, and I was hoping to buy them for one of my students. He's been getting picked on for his shoes, and his family can't afford. She trailed off. Would you take 150? I know you listed them for 200, but it's coming out of my own pocket. I looked at Tyler, whose face had gone completely white. Which student? I asked. David Martinez. Sweet kid, really struggling since his dad got deported. His mom's working 3 jobs but barely keeping up with rent. Tyler made a choking sound. I knew David. Tyler had mentioned him before, always in the context of the weird quiet kid who ate lunch alone. You know what? I said into the phone. 150 is perfect. When I hung up, Tyler was staring at me with something that looked like horror. David Martinez, he said slowly. You're giving my shoes to David Martinez. Ms. Peterson is buying them for David Martinez, I corrected. With her own money, because she cares about her students. But David's. He stopped himself. David's what, Tyler? Poor, he whispered. Poor. The word hung in the air between us like a curse. I stared at my son, this boy I'd raised, this person I'd sacrificed everything for, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Say that again, I said quietly. Tyler's eyes darted away. I didn't mean. No, say it again. David Martinez is what? His shoulders hunched forward. Poor. And what does that make us, Tyler? The silence stretched until I thought I might scream. Outside, a car door slammed, probably Amy Peterson arriving for the shoes. The shoes Tyler was horrified to see go to someone he considered beneath him. We're not like that, he finally mumbled. Aren't we? I laughed, but it came out sharp and bitter. Tyler, David's mom works 3 jobs. I work 2. David gets made fun of for his shoes. You throw tantrums about shopping at Goodwill. Tell me exactly how we're different. We have more stuff. I corrected. And only because I've been killing myself to make sure you never felt like David Martinez. Because I was terrified of you being the kid who got picked on, who felt left out, who went without. The doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see a woman in her 30s holding a coffee cup, checking her phone. Amy Peterson looked exactly like what she was, a teacher spending her own money on a student's dignity. The difference is, I continued, standing up, David's grateful for what he has. You're ashamed of it. I opened the door, and Amy's face lit up with genuine relief. Thank you so much for holding these, she said, handing me 7 20s and a 10. David's going to be over the moon. He's been wearing the same beat-up Converses since freshman year, and some of the other kids. She shook her head. Well, you know how teenagers can be. I'm learning, I said, glancing back at Tyler, who was pretending to study the carpet pattern. As Amy examined the Jordans, her eyebrows shot up. These are practically brand new. Are you sure you want to part with them? These had to cost more than I should have spent, I admitted. But sometimes we make sacrifices for the wrong reasons. After Amy left with the shoes, I found Tyler standing at the living room window, watching her car disappear down our street. David's going to think he's king of the world, he said quietly. Good. Every kid deserves to feel that way sometimes. Even poor kids? The question was so loaded, so revealing, that I had to sit down. Tyler, we are poor kids. We've always been poor kids. The only difference is I've been pretending we weren't, working myself into the ground to maintain an illusion that was making you into someone I don't recognize. My phone buzzed again. Another message about the PlayStation. The buyer wanted to pick it up tonight and was offering an extra 50 if I could throw in the games. I've been thinking, Tyler said suddenly. About what you said. About the jewelry. My stomach dropped. What about it? There's more. He wouldn't look at me. Your watch. The silver one with the blue face that Grandpa gave you. And Mom. His voice cracked. The locket. The one with Dad's picture from when you guys were first married. The room spun. That locket was the one thing I kept from my marriage, not because I missed Richard, but because it reminded me of who I used to be. Hopeful. Young. Stupid enough to think love could pay bills. How much? I whispered. The watch was 300. The locket. He was crying again. The guy said it wasn't real gold, so he only gave me 50. But Mom, I swear I was going to buy them back. With what money, Tyler? Your allowance? I was on my feet, pacing, my hands shaking. That locket was worthless to everyone except me. It had no resale value. You sold my memories for $50 so you could buy a designer t-shirt. I know. I know it was stupid. Stupid? I whirled around. Stupid is forgetting to study for a test. Stupid is leaving your backpack at school. This was cruel, Tyler. This was theft. The words hung between us like broken glass. In 16 years of raising him alone, through tantrums and teenage attitude and all the normal rebellion, I'd never used that word. But that's what it was, wasn't it? My phone rang again. The PlayStation buyer, probably. But when I looked at the screen, it was a number I didn't recognize, with a Phoenix area code. Richard. I let it ring twice before answering, my heart hammering against my ribs. Linda? Richard's voice sounded strained, older than I remembered. We need to talk. If this is about the child support, it's about Tyler. He cut me off, and I heard a door closing in the background. He's been calling me. A lot. And some of the things he's been saying. I glanced at Tyler, who had gone completely rigid on the couch. What kinds of things? He told me you've been stealing from him. Selling his belongings without permission. Said you'd lost your mind and he was scared. Richard's voice dropped lower. He asked if he could come live with me. The words hit like a physical blow. I sank into the armchair, the envelope of cash still warm in my hand. Did he mention why I was selling his things? I asked quietly. He said you were having money problems. That you'd been acting erratic since the divorce and taking it out on him. There was a pause. Linda, if you're struggling financially, you should have said something. I could help. Help? The laugh that escaped me was razor sharp. Richard, when's the last time you sent child support? I sent $300 just last month. Try April. And it was $200. I looked at Tyler, who was now staring at his hands like they held the secrets of the universe. But that's not even the best part. Want to know what your son has been up to while you've been playing house in Phoenix? Silence. He's been stealing from me, Richard. My jewelry, my grandmother's ring, sentimental items worth nothing to anyone but me. Selling them so he could buy designer clothes and then calling me pathetic for working 2 jobs. That's... Richard's voice faltered. That can't be right. $1,500 worth of designer clothes, Richard. A $1,200 jacket he told me you bought him. I stood up, energy crackling through me like electricity. Want to explain to me how a 16-year-old accumulates that kind of wardrobe by selling his old video games? Tyler shot to his feet. Mom, don't. Don't what? Don't tell your father what kind of person you become? Don't explain why I'm selling everything you own that isn't nailed down? Linda, calm down, Richard said, and those 3 words were like gasoline on a fire. Calm down? Calm down? I was shouting now, months of exhaustion and rage pouring out. Your son called me pathetic, Richard. He mocked me to his girlfriend for working myself to death to give him a life I can't afford. He stole irreplaceable family heirlooms so he could play dress up with his rich friends, and now he's crying to daddy because there are consequences? If money's that tight, maybe Tyler should come stay with me for a while. With what money, Richard? You live in a studio apartment with Brittany and your baby. You can barely afford to keep yourself afloat, let alone take on a teenager with champagne taste. I looked at Tyler, whose face had gone completely white. Besides, he doesn't want to live with you. He wants to live with someone who can buy him nice things without asking questions. That's not true. Tyler protested, but his voice cracked on the words. Isn't it? I put the phone on speaker and set it on the coffee table. Richard, ask your son what he knows about our financial situation. Go ahead. Tyler? Richard's voice came through tinny but clear. What's going on over there? Tyler opened and closed his mouth like a fish. It's not. She's making it sound worse than it is. Am I? I pulled out the stack of bills from my purse, the ones I'd been hiding in my car so Tyler wouldn't see them. Electric company sent a second notice. We're 2 months behind, Tyler. 2 months. I threw the orange envelope on the table. Car insurance is due in 3 days, and I've got $67 in checking. Tyler stared at the bills like they might bite him. Richard, I continued, your son owns shoes that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. He throws tantrums about shopping at thrift stores while I'm calculating whether I can afford both milk and bread in the same week. The line was quiet for so long I thought Richard had hung up. Finally, Tyler, is this true? I didn't know it was that bad, Tyler whispered. You didn't want to know, I corrected. There's a difference. My phone buzzed with another text. The PlayStation buyer was getting impatient, asking if the offer was still good. In 2 hours, I'd made more money than I typically saw in a month, all from selling things Tyler had convinced me he needed. Richard, I said, my voice steadying, Tyler can absolutely come live with you. But he should know that your girlfriend's been posting on Instagram about struggling to afford diapers for the baby. So if he's looking for someone to fund his lifestyle, he might want to keep shopping around. Tyler's head snapped up. You looked at Brittany's Instagram? I look at everyone's social media, Tyler. It's called being a parent. I picked up my phone and started typing a response to the PlayStation buyer. Turns out your father's been having his own money troubles. Funny how he forgot to mention that when he was telling you I was just bad with money. The silence stretched until I thought my eardrums might burst. Outside, another car was pulling into the driveway, the PlayStation buyer, right on time. I should go, Richard finally said. But Tyler, we need to talk. Really talk. Yeah, Tyler whispered. I know. After Richard hung up, Tyler and I sat in the growing darkness, neither of us moving to turn on the lights. The doorbell rang, but for a moment, we both ignored it. Are you really going to sell everything? Tyler asked. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a stranger wearing my son's face. I don't know who you are anymore, I said honestly. But I know who I raised you to be, and it wasn't this. The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. I stood up and walked toward the door, leaving Tyler sitting in the dark with his choices. The PlayStation buyer turned out to be a kid barely older than Tyler, with nervous energy and a backpack full of crumpled bills. As he counted out $450 on my kitchen table, I caught Tyler watching from the hallway, his face a mixture of disbelief and something that might have been shame. Thanks so much, the kid said, carefully wrapping the console in a towel. My girlfriend's little brother is going to flip. He's been saving up from his paper route for like 2 years. A paper route. When was the last time Tyler had worked for anything? After the buyer left, I found Tyler in the kitchen, staring at the money scattered across the table like it was evidence of a crime. That's almost $500, he said quietly. I started organizing the bills, counting them twice to make sure. Combined with the earlier sales, I was looking at over $2,000. More money than I'd seen at once since the divorce settlement ran out. Mom. Tyler's voice was small, younger than it had sounded in months. Can I ask you something? I kept counting. 20s, 50s, even a few hundreds from the designer clothes sale. Shoot. When Dad left, did he know? About the money stuff? My hand stilled on a stack of 20s. Such a simple question, but it cut right to the bone. He knew I was working 2 jobs. He knew we downsized to this house, that I sold my car and bought the Honda. I looked up at Tyler, who was gripping the edge of the counter like it was the only thing keeping him upright. What he didn't know was that his child support payments were about as reliable as his promises. Tyler flinched. But he said, "Your father says a lot of things. That's different from doing them." I rubber banded the 20s together with a satisfying snap. "You want to know what really happened when he left? He cleaned out our joint savings account. Took $43,000 that was supposed to be your college fund and used it to start his new life." The color drained from Tyler's face. "What? Surprised? You shouldn't be. That's where your precious designer lifestyle came from, Tyler. Not from my bad money management, but from your father stealing your future to impress a girl younger than his dental hygienist license." Tyler sank into one of our mismatched kitchen chairs, the set I bought piece by piece from estate sales because I couldn't afford to buy furniture as a set anymore. "You never told me that. Because you were 13 and already dealing with your father abandoning you." I wasn't about to add financial betrayal to the list. I picked up my phone as another notification chimed. Someone else interested in Tyler's remaining electronics. But apparently, that was a mistake. Because instead of understanding what we were up against, you decided I was the problem. Tyler was quiet for a long moment, processing. "Then, is that why you kept Dad's picture? In the locket?" The question caught me off guard. "What?" "The locket I sold. It had Dad's picture in it, from when you guys were young. I always wondered why you kept it, if you hated him so much." I stopped counting money. Such a perceptive question from someone who'd seemed so oblivious to everything else. "I don't hate your father, Tyler. I hate what he did to us. But that picture." I tried to find the words. "That picture was from when he promised to take care of us. When he looked at you as a baby and swore he'd always provide for you. I kept it to remind myself that some people's promises are worthless. And now it's gone." "Now it's gone," I agreed. "Sold so you could afford to look down on the life I've been killing myself to give you." My phone rang again, another unknown number. I was starting to dread the sound. "Hello? Mrs. Harrison? This is Principal Martinez from Jefferson High." My blood turned to ice water. School calling at 8 p.m. was never good news. "Is everything all right?" "Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I've had several parents contact me today asking about some online posts your son has made. Apparently, he's been claiming that you've had some kind of breakdown and are destroying his belongings." I closed my eyes, feeling a migraine building behind my temples. "Mr. Martinez, my son has been. I'm not calling to judge your parenting, Mrs. Harrison. But when students start posting about unstable home situations on social media, we have to follow up. It's district policy." Tyler had gone completely rigid in his chair, his face white as printer paper. "What exactly did he post?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. "Photos of broken electronics, claims that you'd stolen his possessions, asking if anyone knew about emancipation laws." Principal Martinez's voice was carefully neutral. "Mrs. Harrison, are you and Tyler having some difficulties at home?" I looked at my son, this boy who'd just burned down what was left of our relationship for social media sympathy, and felt something fundamental shift inside my chest. "We're about to," I said. "Mr. Martinez," I said, walking into the living room where Tyler couldn't hear every word, "my son has been stealing from me to fund a lifestyle we can't afford, then posting online about how embarrassing I am for working 2 jobs. Today I decided to sell the items he bought with my stolen jewelry to teach him about consequences. Apparently, he's decided to make me look like an abusive parent instead of accepting responsibility." The silence on the other end stretched long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. "I see," Principal Martinez finally said. "Mrs. Harrison, would you be available to come in tomorrow morning? I think we need to have a conversation with Tyler present." "Of course." I glanced back toward the kitchen where Tyler was still frozen at the table. "Should I bring documentation? Receipts, police reports for the theft?" "That might be helpful, actually." After I hung up, I found Tyler exactly where I'd left him, but now he was staring at his phone like it had grown fangs. 47 comments, he said without looking up. "On what?" "My post. About you selling my stuff." His voice was hollow. "Everyone's telling me to call CPS or move in with Dad or, worse." I sat across from him, suddenly exhausted. "What did you expect, Tyler? You painted me as an unstable parent having a breakdown. Of course people are going to react. I didn't think it would blow up like this." He scrolled through his phone, his face getting paler with each swipe. Madison shared it to her story. "Jake's calling you psychotic." Someone tagged the school counselor. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a number I recognized, my sister Janet in California. "Don't answer," Tyler said quickly. "Please." But I was already swiping to accept. "Hey, January. Linda, what the hell is going on? Madison Chen's mother just called me asking if you'd lost your mind. Something about destroying Tyler's room and selling his belongings?" Janet's voice was sharp with concern. "She showed me some post Tyler made and honestly, it sounds like you're having some kind of episode." I looked at Tyler, who had buried his face in his hands. "Tyler's been stealing from me, Janet. My jewelry, sentimental items, anything he could sell to buy designer clothes. When I found out, I decided to sell everything he'd bought with the money to teach him a lesson." "Stealing?" Janet's voice shifted. "Tyler, is this true?" Tyler lifted his head, tears streaming down his face. "Aunt Janet, I messed up really bad." "How bad?" "Grandma's ring," I said quietly. "The locket with Richard's picture. Mom's silver bracelet. He sold them all to buy a $1,200 jacket and then called me pathetic for shopping at thrift stores." The line went quiet except for Janet's sharp intake of breath. "She'd helped me look for that ring last Christmas when I thought I'd lost it cleaning house." "Tyler James Harrison," Janet's voice could have cut glass. "Are you telling me you sold Linda's mother's ring?" "I was going to replace it," Tyler whispered. "With what money?" "Your allowance?" Janet was getting wound up now, and I almost felt sorry for Tyler. "Almost. Do you have any idea what your mother has sacrificed for you? What she's been through?" "Janet," I interrupted, "there's more. He's been talking to Richard, telling him I'm unstable and asking to move to Phoenix. And now he's posted something online that has the school worried about our home situation." Jesus Christ. I heard rustling, like Janet was pacing. Tyler, are you listening to me? Yes, ma'am. Delete the post. Right now. Whatever you wrote, whatever pictures you shared, get rid of all of it. But everyone's already seen it. I don't care if the Pope himself shared it to Vatican Twitter. Delete it now. Tyler's fingers flew over his phone screen. Okay, it's gone. Good. Now you're going to post an apology explaining that you were angry about facing consequences for your own actions and that your mother is not abusive or unstable. You're going to tag everyone who commented and make sure they see it. Janet, you don't have to, I started. Oh, I absolutely do. Tyler just tried to destroy your reputation to avoid accountability. That's not happening on my watch. Her voice softened slightly. Linda, are you okay? Really okay? I looked around our little kitchen with its mismatched chairs and secondhand everything, at the stack of money that represented more financial breathing room than I'd had in years, at my son who was finally seeing the consequences of his choices. You know what? I think I might be. Good. Tyler, you and I are going to have a very long conversation this weekend. I'm flying out Friday night. Tyler's eyes widened in panic. Aunt Janet didn't make idle threats, and her lectures were legendary in our family. After Janet hung up, Tyler and I sat in silence while he typed what was probably the most humbling social media post of his 16-year-old life. When he finished, he showed me the screen. I posted some things about my mom that weren't fair. She's not crazy or abusive. I made some really bad choices, and she's trying to teach me responsibility. I'm sorry for lying and making her look bad. She doesn't deserve that. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. The school meeting tomorrow, Tyler said quietly. Are you going to tell them everything? I looked at this boy who'd spent the evening learning what real consequences felt like, whose designer armor had been stripped away to reveal someone who might actually be worth salvaging. That depends, I said. Are you going to keep lying, or are we going to fix this together? For the first time all day, Tyler looked me directly in the eye. Together, he whispered. If you'll let me try. The next morning, I woke up to Tyler standing in my bedroom doorway at 6 a.m., fully dressed for school and holding a cup of coffee. I made breakfast, he said quietly. Well, I tried to. The eggs are kind of burned, but the toast is okay. I sat up, disoriented. Tyler hadn't voluntarily gotten up before 7 since middle school, and he'd certainly never made me breakfast. What's going on? I've been thinking all night. He set the coffee on my nightstand, in my favorite mug, the chipped one from Morrison's diner that he usually complained was embarrassing. About the meeting with Mr. Martinez. About what I'm going to say. The coffee was too strong and slightly bitter, but it was hot and he'd remembered I liked cream. Small steps. And what are you going to say? Tyler perched on the edge of my bed like he used to when he was little and had nightmares. The truth. All of it. Even the stuff that makes me look terrible. I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or another angle. But his eyes were red-rimmed from lack of sleep, and his shoulders were set with something that looked like determination. Tyler, once you tell Mr. Martinez about the stealing, there might be consequences beyond just us. They could involve counselors, social services. I know. He interrupted me, which normally would have earned him a lecture about manners. I looked it up last night. They might make me do community service or counseling or something. But Mom, what if someone else sees those screenshots of my post? What if CPS shows up because I made you look crazy? The thought had kept me awake too. Even though he deleted the original post, Madison and half his class had probably taken screenshots before it disappeared. In the age of social media, nothing ever really went away. There's something else, Tyler continued, his voice dropping. I called David Martinez last night. You know, the kid who got my shoes? My stomach tightened. What did you say to him? I apologized. For being a dick to him all these years. For acting like he was invisible because his clothes weren't nice enough. Tyler was picking at the comforter, not meeting my eyes. He cried, Mom. He actually cried because someone was finally being nice to him. I felt something crack in my chest. Tyler. He told me he's been eating lunch in the library because kids make fun of his free meal card. And you know what the worst part is? I never said anything. I just let it happen because I was so worried about people thinking I was like him. And now? Tyler finally looked at me, and I saw something in his expression that I hadn't seen in years, genuine remorse mixed with something that might have been growing empathy. Now I think being like David might not be the worst thing in the world. At least he's grateful for what he has. At 8:15 a.m., we sat in Principal Martinez's office like defendants waiting for sentencing. Tyler had brought a notebook where he'd written down everything, every item he'd stolen, every lie he'd told, every dollar he'd spent. His handwriting was shaky, but thorough. Mr. Martinez reviewed Tyler's confession with the expression of someone who'd seen it all but still found ways to be disappointed. Tyler, he said finally, in my 20 years as an educator, I can honestly say this is one of the most comprehensive admissions of wrongdoing I've ever received from a student. Tyler's face went pale. Is that good or bad? That remains to be seen. Mr. Martinez turned to me. Mrs. Harrison, I owe you an apology. When parents called about Tyler's social media post, I was prepared for a very different conversation this morning. Tyler's post was his responsibility, not yours, I said carefully. But I understand you had to follow up. Indeed. However, given what Tyler's told me this morning, I think we need to discuss some next steps. Mr. Martinez pulled out a thick folder. Tyler, your academic performance has been slipping this semester. Your English teacher says you've missed several assignments, and you're currently failing Algebra 2. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. I've been distracted. By what? Planning your next theft? The words came out sharper than I'd intended, but I was tired of his excuses. Mrs. Harrison, Mr. Martinez said gently, I understand you're angry. But moving forward, we need to focus on solutions. He was right, of course. But watching Tyler squirm under scrutiny felt like justice after months of being treated like the enemy. Here's what's going to happen, Mr. Martinez continued. Tyler, you're going to meet with our school counselor twice a week to discuss responsibility and empathy. You're also going to write a formal apology to David Martinez and read it in front of your English class. Tyler's eyes widened. In front of everyone? Everyone. And Mrs. Harrison, I'm going to recommend some community resources that might help with your financial situation. There's no shame in needing assistance. As we left the meeting, Tyler was unusually quiet. In the parking lot, he finally spoke. Mom? The community service thing Mr. Martinez mentioned? I want to do it at the food bank. Where David's family goes. I looked at my son, searching for angles or manipulation. But all I saw was a 16-year-old boy finally beginning to understand that the world was bigger than his own wants. Okay, I said. But Tyler? This is just the beginning. 3 weeks into Tyler's community service at the food bank, I got a call that changed everything. Mrs. Harrison? This is Detective Sarah Chen with the County Sheriff's Office. We need to speak with you about some jewelry that's turned up in our investigation. My hands went numb around the phone. What kind of jewelry? A vintage ring with blue stones, a silver locket, and several other pieces. They were recovered during a raid on a pawn shop suspected of dealing in stolen goods. Your son's name came up in our records as having sold these items. I sat down hard in my car outside Morrison's diner, my lunch break suddenly forgotten. Tyler told me he sold them to some collector online. Ma'am, these items were sold to Mickey's Pawn on 5th Street. The same shop we've been investigating for buying stolen merchandise, no questions asked. Detective Chen's voice was professional but not unkind. We're going to need Tyler to come in and make a statement. When I picked Tyler up from school that afternoon, his face went white as I explained the situation. Mom, I swear I didn't know it was illegal, he said, gripping his backpack straps. This kid at school, Marcus Webb, he told me about this place that paid cash and didn't ask for ID. Marcus Webb? I nearly swerved into the next lane. Tyler, Marcus was arrested last month for breaking into cars in a Walmart parking lot. You took criminal advice from Marcus Webb? I didn't know he was a criminal then. Tyler's voice cracked. I just needed money fast, and he said this place was cool about it. The detective's office was a beige nightmare of fluorescent lights and uncomfortable chairs. Detective Chen turned out to be a woman about my age with kind eyes and the patience of someone who'd dealt with countless stupid teenagers. Tyler, she said, reviewing his written statement, Mickey's Pawn is what we call a fence operation. They've been buying stolen goods from kids like you for years, then selling them to collectors out of state. So my grandmother's ring is gone forever? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Unfortunately, yes. Most of the jewelry has already been resold. However, Mickey and his associates are facing serious charges, and your case helps establish a pattern. She looked at Tyler. You're lucky you came forward voluntarily. We've got other kids facing receiving stolen property charges. Tyler went completely rigid. Am I going to jail? That depends on the district attorney. But Tyler, you need to understand, this isn't just about stealing from your mother anymore. You participated in a criminal enterprise, even if you didn't know it. The drive home was silent until Tyler finally spoke as we pulled into our driveway. Mom, what if I go to juvenile detention? Then you'll have to face those consequences, I said, turning off the engine. But Tyler, this is what happens when you make a series of bad choices. They compound. That evening, while Tyler did homework at the kitchen table, my phone rang. Richard's number. Linda, Tyler called me crying about some detective? His voice was tight with concern. What the hell is going on up there? Your son's facing potential criminal charges for selling stolen goods to a pawn shop that's under federal investigation, I said matter-of-factly. But don't worry, I'm sure you'll find a way to blame my parenting. Jesus Christ. Is he okay? Define okay. I watched Tyler through the kitchen doorway, bent over algebra problems he was actually completing for once. He's finally understanding that actions have consequences. So in that sense, he's better than he's been in months. Linda, if he needs a lawyer. With what money, Richard? You're 3 months behind on support again. I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache building. Besides, maybe it's time Tyler learned that Daddy can't fix everything with money he doesn't have. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed bitterly. You want to talk about fair? Fair is our 16-year-old son potentially having a criminal record because he was so ashamed of our life that he turned to crime. Fair is me working 70-hour weeks while you play house in Phoenix and send guilt money when you remember we exist. The line went quiet for a long moment. Then, you're right. About all of it. The admission caught me completely off guard. In all our years together and apart, Richard had never admitted to being wrong about anything more serious than sports statistics. I'm sorry? I said, genuinely confused. You're right, Linda. I've been a terrible father and a worse ex-husband. And now Tyler's in real trouble because I taught him that money solves everything and you're just bad at getting it. I sank into the armchair, suddenly exhausted. Richard. No, let me finish. I'm going to wire you $2,000 tomorrow. Real money, not promises. And I'm going to call Tyler and explain some things about responsibility and respect that I should have taught him years ago. After Richard hung up, I found Tyler standing in the kitchen doorway, his math homework forgotten. Dad's really going to help? He asked quietly. Apparently. But Tyler, money isn't going to fix this. You understand that, right? Tyler nodded, looking older than his 16 years. Mr. Martinez said something today. About how making mistakes doesn't make you a bad person, but how you handle the consequences shows who you really are. I looked at my son, this boy who'd spent the last month learning hard lessons about choices and consequences and the value of things that couldn't be bought. So who are you going to be? I asked. Tyler straightened his shoulders, and for the first time in months, I saw something in his expression that looked like the person I'd raised. Someone better than I was, he said simply. 2 days later, Richard's promised money still hadn't arrived, but something else did, a knock on our door at 7:30 a.m. that made my blood run cold. Through the peephole, I could see a woman in a navy blazer holding an official-looking folder. Behind her stood a uniformed police officer. Mrs. Harrison? I'm Sarah Collins from Child Protective Services. We need to speak with you about some concerns that have been reported. My hands shook as I opened the door, my mind racing through everything that could have gone wrong. Had someone at school seen those screenshots from Tyler's deleted post? Had Detective Chen filed some kind of report? What kind of concerns? I asked, stepping aside to let them in. The CPS workers' eyes swept our living room, taking inventory of our secondhand furniture and the stack of bills I'd left on the coffee table. We received an anonymous report claiming that you've been destroying your son's property in fits of rage and that he's afraid to live in the home. The officer, Officer Bradley according to his name tag, was already scanning the room like he expected to find evidence of abuse scattered around our modest living room. Tyler. I called upstairs. Can you come down here, please? Tyler appeared at the top of the stairs in his school clothes, his backpack slung over his shoulder. When he saw the uniforms, his face went completely white. Oh shit, he whispered, then louder, Mom, I can explain. Tyler, Ms. Collins said, pulling out a tablet, I need to ask you some questions. Are you afraid of your mother? What? No. God, no. Tyler practically flew down the stairs. This is about that stupid post I made, isn't it? I deleted it. I explained that I was lying. Officer Bradley raised an eyebrow. You made false reports about abuse? I was angry, Tyler said, his voice getting higher. Mom caught me stealing from her and sold my stuff to teach me a lesson. I got mad and posted something that made it sound like she was crazy, but she's not. She's the best mom ever and I screwed everything up. Ms. Collins was typing rapidly on her tablet. Tyler, I need you to be completely honest with me. Has your mother ever hit you, threatened you, or made you fear for your safety? Never. Not once. Tyler's voice was firm now, more confident than I'd heard it in months. The only person I should be afraid of is myself, because I almost ruined the best thing in my life. The CPS worker turned to me. Mrs. Harrison, can you explain what Tyler means about stealing and selling his belongings? I launched into the whole story, the overheard conversation, the discovery of the stolen jewelry, my decision to sell Tyler's designer clothes and electronics. Ms. Collins took notes while Officer Bradley examined our home with the thoroughness of someone trained to spot signs of neglect or abuse. So you sold approximately $3,000 worth of items that Tyler had purchased with money from selling your stolen property? Ms. Collins clarified. Yes. And I used that money to catch up on bills and fix my car. I pulled out the receipts I'd organized for our meeting with Principal Martinez. Every transaction was documented. I even got more money than the items were worth in some cases. Tyler suddenly stepped forward. Ma'am? Ms. Collins? This is all my fault. I made my mom look like a monster because I was embarrassed that we don't have as much money as other families. But she works 2 jobs just to keep us going, and instead of being grateful, I stole from her and then tried to make her look bad when she finally stood up to me. Officer Bradley looked up from examining our kitchen. Son, are you saying you filed a false report? I didn't call you guys, Tyler said quickly. I just made that stupid social media post. But whoever saw it and called you, they got it completely wrong. Ms. Collins was quiet for a long moment, reviewing her notes. Finally, she looked up at both of us. Tyler, making false allegations of abuse is a serious matter. People who actually need our help sometimes can't get it because we're investigating cases like this. Tyler's shoulders sagged. I know. I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking about other kids who might really be in danger. Mrs. Harrison, Ms. Collins continued, your methods were unconventional. But given the circumstances and Tyler's admission about the theft, I don't see any evidence of abuse or neglect here. As they prepared to leave, Officer Bradley paused at the door. Tyler, you seem like a smart kid who made some dumb choices. Learn from this before you end up in real trouble. After they left, Tyler and I sat in our living room, both of us shaking slightly from the adrenaline. Mom, Tyler said quietly, I almost got you arrested, didn't I? Yeah, I said honestly. You did. What if they had taken me away? I looked at my son, this boy who'd finally seen how close his lies had come to destroying both our lives. Then you would have learned what having nothing really feels like. The letter arrived on a Thursday afternoon, 2 weeks after the CPS visit. Official county letterhead, Tyler's name typed in stark black letters. My hands trembled as I tore it open in the driveway, not wanting Tyler to see my face if it was bad news. Asterisk notice of juvenile court hearing. The People versus Tyler James Harrison. Charges, receiving stolen property, contributing to criminal enterprise asterisk. November 15th. 3 weeks away. I found Tyler at the kitchen table, actually doing his homework for once, an essay about personal responsibility for Ms. Peterson's class. The irony wasn't lost on me. Tyler. I set the letter down next to his notebook. We need to talk. He read it twice before the color drained from his face. Mom, what does this mean? It means the district attorney decided to press charges after all. I sat down across from him, my own hand still shaking. Detective Chen warned us this might happen. But I cooperated. I told them everything. Tyler's voice cracked on the last word. I thought because I was honest. Being honest doesn't erase what you did, Tyler. It just shows you're willing to take responsibility now. I rubbed my temples, feeling a familiar headache building. We need a lawyer. Tyler stared at the letter like it might spontaneously combust. How much does a lawyer cost? More than we have. The truth sat between us like a lead weight. But your father promised to help, remember? I called Richard immediately, hands shaking as I dialed. He picked up on the first ring like he'd been expecting this. Linda? Please tell me Tyler's not in more trouble. Juvenile court hearing. November 15th, receiving stolen property and contributing to a criminal enterprise. I read the charges slowly, watching Tyler's face crumple with each word. Silence stretched across the phone line. In the background, I could hear Brittany's baby crying. Jesus, Richard finally whispered. What kind of lawyer does he need? The expensive kind. I pulled up Google on my phone, searching for juvenile defense attorneys. Richard, the cheapest one I'm finding is $3,000 retainer, and that's just a start. I'll figure it out, he said, but I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. Linda, I promise. Don't. I cut him off. Don't promise anything else you can't deliver. Tyler's facing real consequences now, and your guilt money isn't going to make this disappear. After I hung up, Tyler was staring at his hands like they belonged to someone else. What happens if I get convicted? He asked quietly. I'd spent the morning researching exactly that. Juvenile detention, possibly up to 6 months. Community service, definitely. Probation until you're 18. I paused, watching him absorb each word. And a criminal record that follows you forever. Tyler put his head down on the table, his shoulders shaking. I ruined everything, didn't I? You made choices, Tyler. Bad ones. But this isn't over yet. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, this is David Martinez. Tyler gave me your number. Can I come talk to you both after school tomorrow? It's important, asterisk. I showed Tyler the message. His face went even paler, if that was possible. Oh God, he whispered. What if he's mad about the shoes? What if he found out they were bought with stolen money and wants to give them back? Then we'll deal with that too, I said, though privately I was wondering the same thing. The next afternoon, David Martinez stood on our front porch holding a manila envelope and wearing the Air Jordans that used to belong to Tyler. Up close, he was smaller than I'd expected, with serious dark eyes and an old-fashioned politeness that made me think of Tyler at that age. Mrs. Harrison? Thank you for seeing me. He glanced at Tyler, who was hovering nervously behind me. I brought something I think you should have. Inside the envelope was a check for $200 and a letter written in careful handwriting. Mrs. Harrison, it read, asterisk, Tyler told me what happened with your grandmother's ring and the other jewelry. I know my mom can't afford to give this money, but she's been saving up to buy me Christmas presents, and when I told her what Tyler's family lost, she said Christmas presents don't matter as much as doing what's right. This isn't enough to replace what got stolen, but maybe it helps a little. Thank you for the shoes. They're the nicest thing I've ever owned. David asterisk. I stared at the check until the numbers blurred. $200 from a family who qualified for free school lunches, given because a 13-year-old boy understood something about gratitude that my 16-year-old was just learning. Tyler was crying openly now, ugly sobs that shook his whole body. I don't deserve this, he choked out. David, your family needs that money more than we do. David looked at Tyler with something that might have been compassion. Tyler, my mom says when you do something wrong, you don't get to decide what you deserve. You just try to do better next time. As David left, Tyler sank onto our front steps, still holding the letter. Mom, he said through his tears, I think I finally understand what you were trying to teach me. I sat down beside him, this boy who was finally growing into someone I could be proud of. What's that? Tyler wiped his nose on his sleeve, looking younger than his 16 years. That being rich or poor doesn't make you a good person. What you do with whatever you have, that's what matters. For the first time in months, I pulled my son into a hug. Yeah, I whispered into his hair. That's exactly right. The juvenile court hearing was still 2 weeks away when Tyler came home from school with news that made my stomach drop. Mom, he said, setting his backpack down with unusual care, something happened today with Marcus Webb. I looked up from the stack of lawyer consultations I'd been reviewing, all of them depressingly expensive, even with Richard's promised help that had yet to materialize. What about Marcus? He got arrested again. At school. Tyler sat down heavily at the kitchen table. But Mom, before they took him away, he told Mr. Martinez that I wasn't the only one he sent to Mickey's pawn shop. My pen stopped moving across the legal pad where I'd been calculating retainer fees. What do you mean? There's like 6 other kids who sold stuff there. Bikes, phones, their parents' jewelry. Tyler's voice was getting higher, more anxious. And Marcus told the cops that I was the one who gave him the idea to target expensive stuff from families. The words hit me like a physical blow. Tyler, that's not true, is it? No. God, no. Tyler shot to his feet, pacing the small kitchen. I never told him to steal from anyone. When he asked me how I got money so fast, I might have mentioned that some families have really expensive stuff just lying around. I closed my eyes, feeling the walls closing in. Tyler, do you understand what you're saying? If Marcus is telling the police that you were some kind of ringleader. I wasn't. I swear I wasn't. But Tyler's face was white with panic. Mom, what if they think I was running some kind of theft ring? What if they add more charges? My phone rang before I could answer. Detective Chen's number flashed on the screen, and my heart sank into my shoes. Mrs. Harrison, we need Tyler to come in for another interview. Some new information has come to light about his involvement with the other juveniles in this case. Detective Chen, Tyler never told anyone to steal. Ma'am, I'm not saying he did. But we have a minor claiming that Tyler provided information about which families had valuable items worth taking. We need to get Tyler's side of the story before this gets worse. After I hung up, Tyler was staring at me with the expression of someone watching their life fall apart in real time. Mom, I think I remember what Marcus is talking about. His voice was barely a whisper. A few months ago, when I was mad about David Martinez getting free lunch, I said some stuff about how unfair it was that some kids get everything handed to them while others have to qualify for assistance. My stomach clenched. What kind of stuff? I mentioned specific families. Like how Madison Chen's parents had this jewelry collection, or how Jake Williams' dad keeps expensive watches in his bedroom drawer. Tyler was pacing again, his words tumbling out faster. I wasn't telling him to steal from them. I was just complaining about how some people have so much they don't even notice what they have. But I was already seeing how this would look to a prosecutor. Tyler, angry about his family's financial situation, provides detailed information about wealthy families' valuables to a known thief. 3 weeks later, 2 of those houses get broken into. Tyler, when were Jake's dad's watches stolen? 2 weeks after I talked to Marcus. Tyler's voice cracked. And Madison's mom's jewelry disappeared like a week after that. But Mom, I never thought, I didn't mean. Intention doesn't matter now, I said, reaching for my phone to call the lawyer consultation back. Tyler, you might have just graduated from receiving stolen property to conspiracy to commit burglary. The consultation fee alone was going to cost us $300 we didn't have, but as I dialed the attorney's office, I realized we were way past the point of worrying about money. Tyler's future was hanging by a thread, and that thread was getting thinner by the hour. The attorney's office smelled like leather and fear. Tyler sat rigidly beside me in the mahogany-paneled conference room while James Morrison, no relation to Morrison's diner, as he pointedly clarified, reviewed the police reports with the expression of a surgeon examining a terminal patient. Mrs. Harrison, he said finally, setting down the papers, I'm going to be completely frank with you. This case has evolved from a juvenile making stupid decisions into something that could destroy Tyler's entire future. The retainer agreement sat between us like a death sentence, $5,000 upfront, with additional fees likely. I stared at the number until my eyes watered, thinking about how many double shifts that represented, how many months of overtime I'd need just to afford Tyler's defense. How bad are we talking? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. If the prosecution can prove Tyler provided intelligence for those burglaries, we're looking at conspiracy charges. That's not juvenile detention anymore, that's potential adult court. Morrison pulled off his glasses, cleaning them slowly. Tyler could be facing 3 to 5 years in state prison. Tyler made a choking sound beside me. I'm 16. They can't send me to real prison. Actually, they can. Colorado allows prosecution of 16-year-olds as adults for felony conspiracy charges. Morrison's voice was gentle but firm. Tyler, the families that were burglarized lost over $40,000 in property. This isn't shoplifting anymore. I felt the room tilt sideways. $40,000. That was more than I made in an entire year. Mr. Morrison, I said carefully, what exactly would you need to do to defend him? Honestly? Pray for a miracle and prepare for the worst. He leaned forward, his expression softening slightly. Mrs. Harrison, I've been doing this for 23 years. I've seen good kids make terrible choices that follow them forever. But Tyler's case has some unique complications. Such as? The other families involved, the Chens, the Williams, the Rodriguezes, they're all pressing for maximum prosecution. Madison Chen's mother has been calling the DA's office daily, demanding that Tyler be charged as an adult. Morrison pulled out another file. It seems Tyler's social media posts about your financial situation have painted him as calculating and manipulative rather than just foolish. My blood ran cold. What social media posts? Tyler's face went completely white. Mom, I thought they were all deleted. Screenshots don't disappear, Tyler. Morrison showed us printouts that made my stomach lurch. Tyler's Instagram stories from months ago, complaining about our poverty while showing off his designer clothes. Posts about how unfair it was that some families had everything while others had nothing. Comments about specific classmates' families and their wealth. Jesus Christ, Tyler, I whispered, reading his words. You documented everything. I didn't know anyone was screenshotting them. They were just stories that disappear after 24 hours. Tyler's voice was getting hysterical. I was just venting. Well, now they're evidence of premeditation, Morrison said dryly. The prosecution is arguing that Tyler spent months cataloging wealthy families, building resentment, and eventually decided to act on it through Marcus Webb. I stared at the printouts, recognizing my son's words but not understanding the person who'd written them. Asterisk Madison Chen's family has so much jewelry her mom literally forgets what she owns. Like, she couldn't even tell if something went missing because she has 3 jewelry boxes full of stuff she never wears. Asterisk. When did you write this? I asked, pointing to the post. Last spring, I think? I was mad because you said we couldn't afford class ring, and I saw Madison's mom picking her up wearing like $5,000 worth of jewelry. Tyler was crying now, ugly sobs that shook his shoulders. I wasn't planning anything. I was just angry. Morrison gathered the papers together. Mrs. Harrison, I need to ask you something difficult. Can you afford my services? The question hung in the air like a guillotine. $5,000 might as well have been $5 million. We'll find a way, I said, though I had no idea how. Because if you can't, Tyler will be assigned a public defender. And given the complexity of this case, that's essentially sending him into battle with a water gun. My phone buzzed with a text from Richard, asterisk wire transfer failed. Bank says insufficient funds. I'm sorry, asterisk. I stared at the message, feeling the last of our hope crumble. Tyler saw my expression. Dad's money didn't come through, did it? I shook my head, unable to speak. Morrison sighed, looking genuinely sympathetic. Mrs. Harrison, there is one other option. Tyler could accept a plea bargain. Plead guilty to conspiracy in exchange for juvenile sentencing, probably 18 months in detention, 3 years probation. 18 months, Tyler repeated numbly. It's better than 5 years in adult prison, Morrison said gently. But Tyler, you need to understand, this follows you forever. College applications, job interviews, background checks. This never goes away. As we left the attorney's office, Tyler walked like a man heading to his execution. Mom, he said quietly, what if I just confessed to everything? Tell them it was all my idea, that Marcus was just following my instructions? Tyler, no. Why not? It's my fault anyway. If I hadn't been such a spoiled brat, none of this would have happened. He stopped walking, turning to face me. Maybe I deserve whatever happens. I looked at my son, this boy who'd finally learned the weight of consequences, and felt something break inside my chest. Nobody deserves to have their life destroyed at 16, I said. Not even you. The morning of Tyler's court hearing, I woke up to find an envelope that had been slipped under our front door sometime in the night. No postmark, no return address, just my name written in block letters across cream-colored paper. Inside was a cashier's check for $5,000 and a note in David Martinez's careful handwriting. Asterisk Mrs. Harrison, my mom heard about Tyler's court date from Ms. Peterson. She said sometimes the whole community has to help save one of its kids. This is from the GoFundMe that David's teacher started. 47 families contributed, including some you don't even know. We believe Tyler can be better than his mistakes. Elena Martinez asterisk. I sank onto the kitchen floor, holding the check with shaking hands. 47 families. David's family, who qualified for free lunch, had organized our entire community to save my son. Tyler found me there 20 minutes later, still in my pajamas, crying over a piece of paper. Mom? What's wrong? He knelt beside me, then saw the check. Is this real? David Martinez's mother organized a GoFundMe. Half the town contributed. I wiped my eyes, laughing through tears. Tyler, do you understand what this means? These families, most of them struggling just like us, they pooled their money to hire you a real lawyer. Tyler stared at the check like it was written in a foreign language. But why would they help me? I called them poor. I was ashamed of being like them. Because they're better people than we gave them credit for. I struggled to my feet, suddenly energized. Get dressed. We're calling Mr. Morrison. 3 hours later, we sat in the same conference room where I'd felt so hopeless just days before. But now James Morrison was leaning forward with something that looked like actual optimism. This changes everything, he said, reviewing the character letters that had flooded his office overnight. Tyler, you've got 47 families vouching for your character. David Martinez wrote a 3-page letter about your apology and how you've been helping him with homework every day since this started. Tyler's face was red. I didn't know David told anyone about that. Ms. Peterson says you've been reading your apology essay to other classes voluntarily, not just as punishment. And the food bank supervisor wrote that you've logged 60 hours of community service in 3 weeks, more than any juvenile volunteer in their history. Morrison spread the letters across the mahogany table like a winning hand of cards. Tyler, I think we can get the conspiracy charges dropped entirely. The families who were burglarized, most of them contributed to your defense fund. They want rehabilitation, not revenge. The hearing lasted exactly 12 minutes. Tyler stood before Judge Patricia Williams, wearing his only good shirt and the weight of 4 months' worth of consequences, and accepted responsibility for his choices with a steadiness that made me proud. Tyler Harrison, Judge Williams said, reviewing Morrison's motion, you'll serve 6 months of supervised community service, attend weekly counseling sessions, and write formal apologies to every family affected by your actions. Do you understand these terms? Yes, Your Honor. And thank you for the second chance. Outside the courthouse, Tyler hugged me so hard I thought my ribs might crack. Mom, he whispered, I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that all those families were right to believe in me. I looked at my son, no longer the entitled boy who'd called me cheap, but someone who finally understood the difference between having nothing and being nothing. You already have, I said. 6 months later, Tyler graduated as valedictorian of his community service class and got early admission to State University with a full scholarship for students who'd overcome adversity. David Martinez was his guest at the graduation ceremony, wearing a button-down shirt Tyler had bought him from his first real paycheck. The boy who'd once sold his grandmother's ring for designer clothes had finally learned that the most valuable things in life can't be bought, stolen, or sold. They can only be earned.